Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Seeley, president of Seeley Test Pros and Leap, helping students to succeed in all kinds of tests from 8th grade to grad school throughout Ohio.
And I'm Mike Bergen, president of Chariot Learning, helping students with Test School and Life based out of Rochester, New York.
Between the two of us today, we have over 60 years of experience at the highest levels of the test preparation and supplemental education industries.
We both love to talk and learn about the latest issues in education, testing, and admissions. So let's get down to tests and the rest. The awesome sponsor we want to spotlight today is Edison Prep AP History Bootcamps. Let's meet our special guest, Brian Eufinger. Brian, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Brian, you are no stranger to people that listen to Tests and the Rest. You have been, I think right now, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Brian is the gold jacket. He is the most common. Yes, he has been on the show so many times, and really, at the same time, hardly enough.
Exactly.
And we're thrilled to have you on today to talk about something that is kind of explain, I'll just briefly say, right? Your AP World and U.S. History boot camps, you only run them once a year. They are part of a small part of a much larger educational practice, but at the same time, they are best of breed. So with that setup, can you tell us a bit about what your AP, US, and World History boot camps are and what the story behind them is?
Sure. So we are excited to have our 14th annual AP US and AP World Boot Camp. So if they were a human, they'd be a freshman in high school. So I feel real old. But yeah, the genesis of these boot camps. Now, first of all, I'll say full disclosure, I am a homer for AP credits in general because both my wife and I double majored and had no stress and graduated on time in 4 years. Not because we're awesome, just because I just did what all the smart kids in my friend group are doing, and we all walked in with a whole semester of credits. And I think a lot of kids don't realize because there's not a lot of published tests and published curves. Most kids don't realize maybe they're going to a school that only needs a 3 for credit. Maybe they're going to a school that needs a 5 for credit. You'll never know. Was I really only one question away from getting 6 credits of awful history reading that I avoided doing during college?
My daughter is literally a year advanced. Like if she doesn't deviate, she's going to graduate in 3 years because of AP credits.
It makes a huge difference. One of our favorite students, teachers aren't supposed to have favorite students. He dropped off his little sister to take a mock test at our office recently. He graduated in 4 years with his master's in accounting. He was he was young for his age. He got his CPA before he could buy a beer legally, largely on the back of AP credits that he brought into Mercer University. So good for him. But basically, the genesis of this boot camp is we had these moms who were sorority sisters at Auburn, and they were getting brunch the day after the AP scores had come out. And their kids were scattered across. They went to Auburn. They knew each other, but they were scattered across all these different high schools. And when they got their scores back, they all had 97% or 103% in their AP history classes. And then scores came out. I think one had a 3, but the rest had 1s and 2s. They weren't mad at me because I didn't tutor them for it, but they're like, maybe he knows. We got to get to the bottom of this. This makes no sense. And so they called me on speakerphone from their brunch, and I just educated them like, well, only 9.8, that whatever year it was, first 14 years ago, only 9.8% of people got a 5 on AP World History, but probably 60 or 70% of kids across America got an A or better in AP World History. And so, yes, the median kid who gets an A gets a 2. And they're like, well, why did no one tell us this? And so it's just this misunderstanding. And so this mom, I don't know why the fact that she's a realtor matters. She goes, well, you should build a boot camp for this. I'm a realtor. I'll fill it. And so she was very emphatic. And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, we're going to lose a bunch of money because I do have a friend, my best friend from childhood, who I like to think I'm a very emphatic and fun teacher. He makes me look boring. He's a walking Alex Trebek, Greg Hudson.
We're talking about Greg Hudson.
Greg, yes.
Listeners who follow our AP series will remember Greg as our guest in episode 471, talking about getting ready for the AP US History exam. Greg is a ton of fun.
Yeah, he is. And so I called him. Greg is a huge Braves fan. And so the original plan was, Greg, they want this. He's like, do they really? Will they buy this? People will pay for this? I said, I know, right? But they're emphatic. I said, worst case, we try this, we laugh about it, and you get a free plane ticket. We'll go to some Braves games and laugh about it and not do it again. But here we are, 1,200 students later over the last 14 years. So we did it his year, proof of concept, did AP US history. And then once it worked, then we added Greg's wife, Kelsey, the lady version of him that he met in college. college who's also an equal a history aficionado, does AP World for their school, and so we fly them in from. We do it both in person and virtually, and so like everybody since COVID, we offer it both in person and virtually, and so we do it one weekend each year, and really it's meant to be a kickoff to the last 2 or 3 weeks of studying because if a kid memorized AI can take the history test and do very well because it's just learning the facts. But if you don't know how to ding their bell and know where the rubric, what to do on the essays, that's half the essay score as well. So the boot camp is just 1 8-hour day, Saturday or Sunday. We're doing it one weekend in April. It's April 26th and 27th this year. And so basically, it's interspersed content modules and strategy modules where you can do some live thesis statement generation and critiquing people who want to volunteer to have their statements critiqued. So it is fun because I myself was skeptical. Can kids really be engaged for this long? So again, they're both very engaging styles of educators. You have to be when there's sometimes some pretty dry stuff. And when it comes to history. And of course, they have, with a smile, revised the curriculum, I don't know, 7 times over the last 14 years because they keep changing what's fair game on the test and changing the years covered. And they split the whole modern versus old ancient world history. And we've adapted to all those changes over these last 14 years. But I think most parents might be fashionably pessimistic and thinking my kid will never get that score. There's no one gets all the questions wrong or all the questions right. Like they might just be 3 questions away from getting a couple credits and then taking a class in their major that's more fun, that's more relevant to their career and all that. So it's a neat program that we're glad to do. We obviously do one-on-one subject tutoring for AP stuff throughout the year, but a lot of kids who are busy or that's not in the budget, it's great to be able to do this as the kickoff and then have 2 or 3 weeks of a battle plan to do a bunch of really important work before the AP history exam.
So these are scheduled for Saturday, April 26th and Sunday, April 27th, and students should attend one of those 2 days, right?
Right.
You can pick the Saturday or the Sunday, and you can pick AP, US, or World. Obviously, you're not doing both the same year.
Correct. And we're happy to get creative too, especially from the virtual standpoint as well. I have one girl who signed up yesterday for AP World, and her mom was all worried. She's like, am I going to have to send her to the thing still with her hair in an updo because she has prom that night or something? And so it's fine. So the girl, because the class looks pretty similar both days, we offer it both days, same content each day, identical. Because what if you have track meet on Saturday or church on Sunday or whatever? So that girl, she's very excited. Her mom, she was really mad, but she's excited now. Her older brother got a 5, and she said that mom was like, "You're going regardless," and so she's going to go from 8 a.m. till noon on a Saturday, and then going from noon.
Come back for the other.
So because it matters.
Oh, you shouldn't mention that because everybody's going to want that. The prom special.
That's fine. It's just a Zoom link. It's fine. Happy to help. And we do. And the thing is, we do ship materials. It's not just taking furious notes. We ship a bunch of hard copy materials that are great study guides, things like rubrics and content packets and summaries, good Cliff Notes stuff because they do keep changing things. And one thing that's awesome about they're great teachers, but they also are very nice people who are hesitant to toot their own horn, so I'll toot it for them. Like they've been graders for the test. They did such a good job that they training the trainers, like they trained the graders for the test. They've helped contribute questions. They serve on AP councils and like they keep it. If they leave their high school will be in a rough spot because they they run all the AP World and all the AP for a very, very awesome public high school in Des Moines where they work.
Yeah, I can say I don't know about your world history teacher, but I know as far as Greg and his credentials go, again, when my daughter was invested in AP US history, she followed Heimler's history on YouTube, and she came to me, she was like, oh, your friend Greg was on. He's part of kind of that web of educators that somehow touch everyone that's interested in learning to earn their best scores on this test.
Yeah, Greg is very, and again, he would never say that because he's very down to earth, but he is integrated in the same way. Like when I talk to people for ACT, it's like, wait, so like Mike, the guy that made Math Chops, like if you've met him in real life, like he's a celebrity. So yes, like as we all know in this education world, it's a very small world of a lot of folks that are doing all this high level stuff.
So in terms of your students, obviously you're mentioning like in person and on Zoom or online. Like in terms of the students who actually you've seen using this, are these students more locally? Or are you seeing the kids like across the country signing up for your boot camps?
Oh, it's probably half and half. So a lot of the people that did it are found out about it because their cousin here in Atlanta got a five, and they think they're smarter than their cousin. So if they can get a five, I can definitely get a five. I'll do that class. And so, but yeah, so we had people from I don't know 15 states that did the boot camp last year. So happy to help. And it's again, I think the ROI is huge just because even at a cheap college, like what does 3 credits cost or what does 6 credits cost? Et cetera. So it's a very small lottery ticket. Plus, one important thing for people listening to this, obviously we're nerds. We see this all the time. So more and more people, deans are coming out and saying, like the dean of Emory, who said we don't trust GPA that much anymore. Therefore, here at Emory, going forward, we are seeking external validation, such as AP exam scores. And so that's always been the case, but people are being louder about it. Where like, you took 9 APs, but you only sat for one exam. This looks fishy. And so parents, believe in your kids and know that more and more colleges, if you're taking 9 APs and you submit zero, it's going to look funny. And some have policies where you're supposed to submit all of them even. So you don't want to be forced to submit at one of those auto submit places a bunch of ones and twos, obviously.
Well, what's interesting too about I think AP US history and possibly world, but usually US, it's often the very first AP test that's like a student's entree into the AP curriculum because most students are taking it like sophomore, or I know my boys took world history freshman year.
Around here, it's world history in sophomore and US in junior, but everyone, that's
Right. It's
standard.
a
That's a
very
standard class.
popular and especially to be the first one. So I think it's so essential that especially if it's your first one,
Right.
having some kind of guidance and reassurance and understanding of do you have all your ducks in a row for this test coming up because it's probably the biggest, the most cumulative test you've ever taken in a particular subject area.
And this is just a humanitarian note. Like AP history, there's a reason why we're offering. There's certain like you can't teach Spanish in one day. People always say, "Are we going to expand it?" And yes, we're hoping to expand into possibly econ, bio, one or two others next year. We have to find the right professor and make sure we can do it in one day because Spanish you can't do it in one day. But the other thing is, I like history because not that I don't love history. I love history. I love watching Ken Burns documentaries, all that kind of stuff. But it's a painful. It could be a painful class to take in college. Whereas, like, there's just many people who tell me, even if I get a five in AP Calc, I'm going to decline that credits for Calc 1 because I want the foundation at my college of Calc 1 because
Right.
I've heard here at Carnegie Mellon that things are scary and like let's not jump straight into Calculus 4 or something. Because that, it's more of a discrete box of content that you can get your credits and move on to your major and things as opposed to some prereqs at for calculus
And that's a
one
great way
class.
of thinking about it because at some schools you do have to consider what do you want to use your AP credit for, and certainly checking the history box, if you will. This can be like an excellent way to be able to do that. So, what should someone who's curious about Edison Prep's AP History boot camps know about it, other than what we've talked about so far?
Just that, it's to my knowledge, it's the longest running class that is, I mean, 1,200 students is the longest running class that is taught by actual AP full-time teachers that have been greater, that have contributed content. I know that a lot of the entities out there that do it, like, just are cost more than our class does, and they're 2 hours, and they're taught by like a Georgia Tech sophomore who happened to do well 2 years ago, which is fine. It's beer money for that student, but we're proud that we, just like we do in our SAT and ACT practice, like we have college graduates, really long tenured people, because we work with a lot of smart cookies. But like with our SAT, ACT people, we're happy to help anyone at whatever part of the spectrum they are. If they're going to a college that just needs a three to get 6 credits, great. We hope we can help drag you from a two to a three. If you're applying to some Ivy League school that requires a five, great. Let's get greedy and push that four to a. It's accessible for people of all levels. Like, because the question I always get is, who's it right for? Is right for anybody who's venturing for AP credit at the caliber of schools that they're vying for.
Yeah, I think it speaks to your commitment to this particular program that you've been running these boot camps for, as you said, 14 years, and yet you're only doing AP World and US History. And you mentioned some reasons why you're not doing the other ones, but I think part of that also goes to, I imagine, you know that you've got a great program here and you get results and you haven't expanded into the other subjects because you just don't have the caliber of teacher, you don't see the runway. I imagine I'm putting words in your mouth, but this program has worked year over year. And it's not like next year you're going to have physics, macroeconomics, and pre-calculus.
Right. Yeah, econ and psych are the two most likely because they're more discrete in terms of the total bucket of content. But like calculus, you can't do in a day.
Well, it's
Spanish, you
interesting.
can't
It's
do in a
really these
day.
social studies APs that are easier to deliver, I think, in a sort
Yeah,
of a
psychology
bootcamp
definitely
format.
fits in that vein, but yeah,
Yeah.
and it makes sense, and you've got outstanding teachers. Are you guaranteeing fives?
We cannot guarantee fives. Um, but yeah, I think that, and also I think one thing that is motivational, the scores, I mean, are obviously the reason why people do this. Scores, getting credit, but we have a lot of parents who will say, and this is a very pragmatic approach. We get moms all the time who text me, so you're telling me the price tag is only this. And for that, I will have the bliss of not nagging my kid. There's gonna be 8.5 hours where he's held captive and getting this stuff done. But it really and kids will show up sometimes being dropped off by their mom with not a smile on their face, and then they walk out and their parents from the parking lot before they leave the parking lot. We always get some students from the in-person class whose mom's like, I don't know how he's smiling after 8.5 hours. You guys are magic, and so that's not me being magic. That is our instructors are really good at what they do.
That's fantastic. Look, obviously, we could talk about your Edison Prep AP History boot camps all day. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, Brian.
Thanks a lot.
If listeners would like to learn more about the boot camps, where should they go?
It's edisonprep.com, Edison like Thomas Edison, edisonprep.com/AP history.
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. Be sure to join us for another fascinating topic and guest on the next tests and the rest.
Did you enjoy this episode as much as we did? Find expanded links and more for this and all of our episodes at our show page at testsandtherest.com. While you're there, be sure to explore everything the larger TestBright site has to offer, including real, expert, unbiased answers to the toughest admissions testing questions. Of course, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Test and the Rest on your favorite podcast platform. If there's a topic or guest you'd like us to feature, just let us know and spread the word.